All right, I think we're going to go ahead and start our webinar on financial aid for the MBA for Executives program. Thank you so much for being here and spending part of your day with us here to learn a little bit more about this process and about the MBA for Executives program. We'll start with introductions. My name is Joanne Legler, and I'm the Director of Admissions for the MBA for Executives program at the Yale School of Management. On the admissions side, I'm joined by my two colleagues, Liz Lewis and David Daniel. They'll be on the back end answering any questions that you might have. So if you do have questions for us and you'd like to ask them in the Q&A feature, Liz or David may be able to answer some of them as we go along, and those we don't get to during the presentation, we'll save for the end. And we'll do some Q&A with both myself and my colleague, Valerie Cardona, and I'll give her a minute to introduce herself. Valerie, thanks for being with me today.
Of course. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. As Joanne mentioned, I'm Valerie Cardona, and I'm the Assistant Director for Financial Aid here at SOM. Today, we'll go over the different options available to you to finance your MBA, so we'll get into the nitty-gritty a little later on in the slides. But it's a pleasure to be here and to chat with you guys today.
I'm thrilled to have you here, Valerie. I always love partnering with you on this yearly presentation that we do to get folks more up to date on what's going on in the world of financial aid. But we will start with a presentation about the MBA for Executives program. This is definitely a shortened version of that, so I absolutely encourage you to either go back and watch one of our previously recorded webinars, big high-level overview of the program. We also have some great webinars on the executive assessment that we've recorded, some terrific student and alumni panels. And then we do have an information session, a full information session coming up this Thursday. So I hope that you'll join us for that as well. And as always, you can go to our events page to RSVP for any of our upcoming events that look good to you. But for now, thank you for joining us on this topic. And like I said, we will do a full overview of the program first and the admissions process, but we will keep it condensed. So definitely encourage you to ask any questions that you might have in the Q&A. But it's always a great place to start by reiterating our mission at the Yale School of Management. And our mission, as you can see on this slide here, is to educate leaders for business and society. These are leaders who are thinking broadly about the big problems that business faces today and certainly will face in the future as well. These are also folks who are thinking about the problems as they might be solved by business, but not only by business, recognizing that all the problems that we have in all facets and sectors and industry cannot be solved by business alone, nor can they be solved without business tactics and theories as well. We have a former boss of ours who always says that the most important words in our mission are the small ones, to, which indicates our service to others, and for, in service of others, to, being very intentional, and the word and, of course, linking the two things together. If you were to ask anybody at SOM, staff, faculty, students, alumni, everybody can probably rattle this mission off with ease. It really does drive everything we do, not only about who we are as a school and what our future might look like, but really it drives everything that we do on a day-to-day decision-making basis as well. So if this serves you, if this resonates with you, you're probably in the right place. Big overview of the time required on campus for the MBA for Executives program. This is a 22-month consecutive program resulting in a full MBA degree. We meet every other weekend for 22 months, every other Friday all day and Saturday all day. And then we also require 4 weeks of what we consider to be in residence in addition to those weekends. So if you are considering joining the class of 2024, that means you'll start our program with 2 weeks of what we call orientation and residency a year from now. 2023, you'll do Global Network Week, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's a full week partnering with one of our sister schools through the Global Network for Advanced Management. And then come back and join us for your second year with a week of residency and the start of your area of focus courses. So 22 months plus 4 weeks, that's about 60 Fridays. So we'll talk a little bit more too about things like employer approval and how to balance this with work and life. To say it another way, here's a great visual for a sample class weekend. We'll start every weekend with a course. You'll be in class for about 3 hours, break for lunch. And then just about every other class weekend, you'll be in a required colloquium speaker series or event, and that's your area of focus faculty director curating a series of speakers to come to campus and talk about the state of the industry, the state of that particular company or organization. And those are required, and that brings the first and second year classes together by area of focus. Let's take a little break, go back into class, and then perhaps and hopefully moving forward, we'll be able to do fun things on Friday night that we call cross-campus events, opportunities for you to get to know what Yale is like, what it's like to be a student at this great institution. So maybe we'll go to a hockey game at the Whale, which is conveniently just across the street from the School of Management. On Saturday, we'll do it all again, even earlier this time. So classes from 8 to 11, you'll have an early lunch at 11, go back into class in the afternoon, and then perhaps you'll stick around for an optional workshop. This one here as a sample is Executive Voice and Presence, which is actually taught by one of the teachers at the Yale School of Drama. So it's a pretty full weekend. You'll be with us, like I said, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then most students will depart the New Haven area on Saturday afternoon and head back home. The curriculum itself is hopefully what you would expect. Throughout the 2 years that you're with us, you'll be working on your own leadership development through workshops, through courses, through optional opportunities as well. In the first year, you are in the core curriculum. It's the same core curriculum as our full-time MBA students are taking, and that is a perspectives-based curriculum. And I definitely encourage you to come to or go back to one of our information sessions to learn a little bit more about the core curriculum in detail. That's your first year. You'll end the first year with that Global Network Week trip that I talked about earlier. You'll kick off your second year with area of focus courses, and then round out your MBA experience with advanced management courses, which I'll talk about in a moment as well. Again, throughout this entire time, you'll be in our colloquium speaker series. This is required by area of focus, curated by your faculty director. As I mentioned, the curriculum rounds out after your area of focus courses with what we call advanced management courses. And here, as you can see, you actually get a little bit of opportunity to elect courses. Otherwise, the curriculum is pretty much curated for you. These courses here represent what we think are the most popular, most exciting, cutting edge courses that are offered for all MBA students, curated and then specifically tailored for the MBA for Executives population. In addition, you will take 4 required advanced management courses to round out your MBA experience. So hopefully this is exactly what you're looking for and really does give you what you would expect to find in a full MBA curriculum. And of course, these are subject to change from year to year. I've mentioned Global Network Week a couple of times now, and this is a really unique opportunity that all MBA students at the Yale School of Management have to globalize their experience. We are founding members of the Global Network for Advanced Management, which is a consortium and partnership of about 32 business schools around the world in 30 different countries. And the opportunity here is for EMBA students to come together across different programs around the network as EMBA students and spend a week. Of course, the last 2 years, this has taken place virtually, so we're glad to still have the opportunity for Global Network Week. But of course, we hope that moving forward, this will be an in-person, on-campus experience at a place like UCD Smurfit in Dublin, Ireland, talking about the future of food, or doing business in China, which is a past course that was taught by Fudan University in Shanghai, China. The opportunity to do this is really up to you. The point is that you're going with a few of your MBA classmates from Yale, but you're going to be interacting with MBA students, EMBA students specifically from all over the world. That's going to make up your cohort for the week. And of course, the opportunity to engage in cultural activities and maybe a little bit of travel that extends beyond the week is there as well. And this is definitely one of the highlights of the MBA and the EMBA program at the Yale School of Management. As I've mentioned a couple of times now, I think one of the most unique features of our program is the opportunity to dive deep into an area of focus. So while this is a general management MBA degree, the unique feature of our program here at Yale SOM has taken advantage of the best of what Yale University has to offer to allow for an opportunity to learn in depth about an area that you've already selected as sort of your passion area, the thing that you've chosen probably at this point to devote your career to. And those are asset management, healthcare, and sustainability. Our program did start as a healthcare MBA back in the day, and we were lucky enough to add these other areas of focus back in 2015. So alphabetically speaking, the first one is asset management. This is, of course, as you can imagine, for those who have a background or a history in finance specifically, and even more specific than that, some finance experience in investments like private equity or venture capital, investment management, portfolio management. There's a picture here of Professor Roger Ibbotson. Of course, he's on the finance faculty at Yale SOM, and you'll be lucky enough to take a course with him regardless of your area of focus because he teaches in one of our core courses. And speaking of courses, the area of focus is managed by Will Getzman, who is in the top left corner here. He has done all of his schooling at Yale, and we're lucky enough to have him as the faculty director for asset management. Take a look at the courses that are listed here. As you can see, this is for folks who are thinking about how to help others create a strong financial future moving forward. We've had lawyers in the program. We've had folks involved in ESG investing in the past. So take a look at this. Is this the courses that you want to take? Are these the list of courses you're excited about learning more about? And if so, asset management is probably for you. The second area of focus, as I mentioned, it started as a healthcare EMBA back in the day. And this was an opportunity where our faculty director, Dr. Foreman, looked around and noticed that himself and his colleagues were really being tapped for leadership and administrative positions without the requisite tools to be successful in that space as healthcare practitioners. And so the EMBA was born at ELSOM with a specific focus on healthcare. This is actually a picture of our annual healthcare conference. This is, we think, the largest student-run healthcare conference in the country. It does take place, of course, on a yearly basis in April. The dates are already set for April 2022, and hopefully, I think the idea is to come together in person, see what happens. But this is just one session of the healthcare conference. This is a full-day experience with multiple sessions. Alumni, students, faculty will come and share ideas, learn from one another. And the healthcare area focus, of course, is for folks in the healthcare space with deep knowledge and experience to be able to allow others to learn from them as much as they are learning from their classmates. And as I mentioned, Dr. Howard Foreman is the faculty director of the healthcare area of focus. If you don't know who he is, Google him. You'll quickly learn how nationally recognized he is for his expertise, especially during the COVID-19 crisis and the public health space. I'd also like to point out the population health and health equity class here. That course is kind of evolved as a result of students asking for more in this space. We need to learn more about this in order to be great practitioners and supporters of the healthcare space. It's also taught by a woman named Dr. Marcela Nunez-Smith. If you don't know who she is, definitely Google her as well. Recently, she was asked to join President Biden's COVID-19 task force and heads up the subcommittee on health equity. So definitely go and check her out. Lots of great articles recently written about her. She also heads up our Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. So if you don't know anything about that and you are in the health equity space, we have a terrific fully funded fellowship for practitioners in that space, headed up by Dr. Nunez-Smith. So definitely check that out. And last but not least, sustainability is our third area of focus. This is the one that is most industry inclusive. We have folks in sustainability from oil and gas, from retail, from nonprofit. And this is a really great opportunity for those who are thinking about sustainability overall. So it doesn't mean, excuse me, that you have to have CSR in your title or ESG in your title, but this is a great opportunity for those who want to think creatively and collaboratively across industries to solve some of the world's really just biggest problems. The idea here is that you do have some responsibility for sustainability in your organization or thinking in ways that allow your organization to continue to be sustainable and healthy and viable throughout the years. The photo here is perfect. It's a picture of Kroon Hall, which is the home of the School of the Environment at Yale and is conveniently just across the street from the School of Management. This area of focus is headed up by faculty director, Professor Todd Court. He actually just did a terrific webinar, so check that out on our Insights page. But sustainability is headed up by Todd, who has dual representation at the School of Management and at the School of the Environment. He also heads up CBAE, the Center for Business and the Environment at Yale. Great webinars and research that comes out of that center. And again, take a look at these courses. I always point out the climate change class because if you don't believe in climate change, this might not quite be the right thing for you. And that course is actually taught by a law school professor. I went a little faster than I meant to on that slide, but hopefully you get the gist of what we're looking for in sustainability. And if you're not sure, we're always encouraging folks to do a pre-assessment with the admissions team to see what might be right for you. I'd love at this point to introduce you to the class of 2023. The class of 2023 started this past July, full in person and on campus, as you can see, fully masked in the classroom. That's the health mandate at this point. We were thrilled to bring in such a wonderful, talented class. On average, EMBA students at the Yale School of Management have 14 years of work experience. We're particularly proud that this class is 47% women. About half of our students have advanced degrees. They represent 14 countries of citizenship and on average are about 37 years old. So if this feels like you, you're probably in the right place. And again, a pre-assessment is a great way to determine whether or not the EMBA program is right for you. So if that all sounds good to you, I'd love to at least quickly walk you through the admissions process. Again, we'll have a terrific, we do have several terrific webinars that have the process much more spelled out in detail. And in October, we'll do an application tips webinar. So if you are thinking about applying for a round 1 deadline in November, definitely join us there. But for now, this is a big overview of the process. Of course, we'll ask you to submit your application rather, by one of our 3 deadlines, and the deadlines are pretty firm. The admissions committee will review each and every application in detail to determine whether or not that candidate is going to move on to the next phase of our process, which is the interview day. Interview days are taking place remotely these days. Hopefully we can get back to a point where we're doing those in person, but interviews are by invitation only. After the interview is complete, the feedback from the interview day will return to the admissions committee, and we will then use that information combined with your evaluation of your application to make a final admissions decision, which is to be admitted, to be placed on a wait list, or unfortunately not to be admitted to the program. The application components are very transparent and very straightforward. We're not trying to make this any more challenging for you than it has to be. And so these things should sort of sound familiar or be expectations of yours as to what's required for our application. A resume, preferably 1 to 2 pages. We know that folks in healthcare, that's almost an impossibility. And so again, if you have any questions about that, let us know. We do require 2 essays, one asking you to talk a little bit more about your motivation for the MBA, your goals, and then a shorter essay asking about your area of focus. And then a 3rd essay asking a little bit about something that you find particularly shocking, might be related to your work, might not be, but let's see how good of a writer you are and how you can put together a coherent argument. 2 letters of recommendation are required. We do prefer for those to be professional, preferably on top of that, one from your most current supervisor. If that's not possible, no problem. We'll look for one from a past supervisor. We do continue to require a valid standardized test, either the executive assessment, also known as the EA, the GMAT, or the GRE. And to be valid, that score must have been completed in the last 5 years. You can go ahead and send your scores directly to Yale SOM. We do require copies of transcripts, so whatever you might have lying around at home, a quick photo of that uploaded to your application will do the trick. You do not have to order or pay for transcripts from your school unless you are enrolling in the program. So for right now, whatever you've got at home or can download from your alma mater will do just fine. I did mention we do require employer approval as part of our application process, and that's just you telling us who would sign off on your time out of the office. So the employer approval form is not activated until you are registered for an interview, but we will need this information up front as part of the application process. We do have an application fee of $225. And then, like I said, the invitation to interview and a complete interview rounds out the application components. Our application deadlines for the class of 2024 are on this slide. The round 1 deadline is coming up. I just had to be reminded that October is at the end of this week. And so by the end of next weekend will be a month out of our round 1 deadline. So if you are intending to apply in round 1, hopefully you already have an application started. And if not, definitely want to get on that, start looking through our application and gearing up to produce what will absolutely be a terrific application for evaluation for admission. If that doesn't quite work out for you, we've got round 2 in January and round 3 in March. And again, all of these deadlines are for the class of 2024, who will begin the program in July of 2022. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Valerie to sort of start and kick off our discussion. Great picture here of the class of 2023, who's the first year of the program right now. Valerie, I'll let you take it from here.
Great, and thank you so much, Joanne. So I think right now we're all excited to begin pursuing our executive MBA, but we also know that the financial aid piece is obviously a large piece in the preparation process. And so we understand that pursuing an executive MBA is a significant time in both your time and it's a significant investment in both your time and your money. And so with that being said, I wanted to just start off by letting you know that we are here for you as a resource from the get-go. If you have any questions about anything that we're reviewing today, we'll have our email at the end of the slide, and you're more than welcome to send us any questions. So just a quick note, all the costs that I'll review right now are for the 2021-2022 academic year. Once we have new rates for the class of 2024, we will update our external sites. The current all-inclusive cost for 22 months for the class of 2023 was $198,500. Now in the financial aid world, we split that up into 2 years. And so each academic year is $198,500 divided by 2. And this is, again, the all-in cost. So it includes Friday evening accommodations during class weekends, class meals during class meeting periods, the Global Network Week participation, as well as required textbooks and study materials. And we can go on to the next slide. Great. And so how do we work for you? And if you go into the next slide, we can get into those details. So what do we do? As I mentioned before, we're really here to help you understand what your financing options are in funding your executive MBA. And typically that's done through either loan sources, which are funds that you're required to pay back, or scholarship funding, which is free money that you're not required to pay back. But our relationship with students, with you, wouldn't quite end just there. We're also committed to helping our alums post-graduation in understanding loan repayment options, loan refinancing options. For students in the executive MBA program, there's a robust refinance market. And so it's definitely something that we can help you strategize post-graduation if you needed to. Beyond that, our office also administers the loan forgiveness program, which we'll certainly go over in the next few slides. If you do qualify for loan forgiveness, you may have a relationship with our office for 13 years, as the loan forgiveness program runs 10 years post-graduation. So we'll get to know some of you pretty well. We'll get all cozy with some of you pretty well for quite some time. And with that, I'll hand it over to Joanne for the next slide to go over the EMBA scholarship process, which is administered by the EMBA admissions team.
Fantastic. Thanks, Valerie. The scholarship process, it does start with the admissions office and really ends with us as well. And Valerie will show you later about how that factors into a potential financial aid package, but you start with us. So even after today, if you have specific questions on scholarships, definitely talk to the admissions team. If at some point we need to hand you over to Valerie and someone on her team, we will, but we've been at this for a long time. We kind of know what we're doing. So definitely start with our team first. We offer limited partial scholarships, and what we do to take into consideration for who might be awarded a scholarship is both financial need and unique perspective and merit. The first step that you have is to start an application. Within the application, you will notice an opportunity to indicate your interest in being considered for a scholarship. So that's the first thing to do. In parallel, I would definitely encourage you, and Valerie will talk about this later as well, to go ahead and get started with the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. It may have been a long time since you remember working with the FAFSA or filling out the FAFSA. I certainly did it with a pen and a piece of paper back in my day. Everything's online now, of course, and the process to submit and process the FAFSA is so much faster and more efficient these days. So don't let that scare you off. As I mentioned up top, we are limited in the amount of scholarships we offer. We're of course grateful that we can offer any scholarships whatsoever. And we do take into consideration your income, your potential family situation, and that comes from the FAFSA. And then we think about your unique perspective and merit as it has been demonstrated in the application for admission. Long story short, we take all of this information into account, and at the time of admission, may be able to offer you a scholarship upon admission. If you're still missing information or we don't have all the information that we need, we may reach out to you to get all the information we need before then, extending an opportunity to be considered for scholarship a little bit later on. So as you can see, the name of the game here is to get everything in on time at the time of application, and then we'll be able to offer both admission and scholarship at the same time if you qualify for either or both. All right. I'd also like to talk for a minute. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation about the Posen Commonwealth Fund Fellowship in Health Equity Leadership at Yale University. It's a little bit of a mouthful. We now have our third class of fellows in the class of 2023, and this is a fantastic opportunity for a fully funded EMBA with the focus on healthcare. So if you are a healthcare student, if you are working deeply and are committed to improving healthcare and access for minorities, the socioeconomically disadvantaged groups, other vulnerable populations, then this might be for you. At this time, there continues to be a preference for healthcare practitioners. However, we have had students in the program who work on the administrative side of things. So I look forward to your application regardless of where you live in the healthcare space. But yeah, let's be honest, this is really for those who have a commitment to and demonstrated experience with improving health equity and health outcomes. The opportunity to be considered for the fellowship is just by clicking a box and then completing a short essay in the application. If you have any additional questions about the Posen Commonwealth Fund Fellowship or would like to be considered for this or have questions about eligibility, I absolutely encourage you to reach out to our office and somebody on my team will get back to you about this. In the meantime, check out our website, read the fellowship bios, see who our faculty members are who are in this program. Take a look at the National Advisory Committee and the members there. But this is a really special opportunity and we're so grateful for our funders to be able to offer this opportunity to students who are doing this very important work. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Valerie to talk a little bit about external scholarships and continue the presentation.
Absolutely. So we recommend looking into external sources, and now is actually a great time to start perusing those options. And our office, we're proud to have built an external scholarship database. It's filterable, so you can go ahead and add different criteria, such as your career interests, your region, its population. You can put different keywords, and it'll whittle it down to different outside external sources that are most applicable to you. So we recommend, as trying to get all of the free money that you can to start that process, or to at least maybe start compiling some scholarships that may be applicable to you, taking note of those deadlines, as any bit of funding always goes a long way. And we included the URL for the database. It's straight on our site just below. And we can also, at the end, if you'd like, I can include that in the chat just so that you can copy and paste that. But definitely a good way and a viable way to help fund your MBA and to bridge any educational expenses. And on the next slide, we also included just a few search engines that we're aware of, particularly for international folks in the room. We wanted to make you aware of the IEFA search database, as well as Education USA, which we find, or we've heard from our international students, to be the most helpful. The rest, to be perfectly transparent, are more helpful towards domestic students. But aside from the database on our site, these are some additional resources just to widen the pool of external sources that you're applying for. All right, and so that was the free money, the different sources of free money, scholarship money, external sources that you can look into. Now we'll talk about just the different loan options that you may be eligible for. So I mean, in filling in the funding gaps, some of you will use loan funding to meet the gap in your educational expenses annually. And when I talk about financial aid being annual based, this is really what I'm talking about. The FAFSA application that Joanne mentioned earlier, it does have to be filled out each academic year. So you would likely be filling out the FAFSA twice. And we remind all continuing students when it's time to complete the FAFSA for the second year, typically around April or May time. We know you're really busy, so we'll send you those reminders. As a note, the FAFSA is available to complete now. Actually, within the next few days, it opens up October 1st. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but it's available to complete on fafsa.ed.gov. And we can go on to the next slide. All right, so this next slide is actually a very important slide in understanding how financial aid works at SOM. So the cost of attendance piece at the very top references the $198,500 figure for 2 years that I was mentioning. If we divide that into half for your first year, that would be $99,250. In this particular scenario, this student was very generously awarded a scholarship from the EMBA admissions team. So that would be $10,000 per year, which is also reflected there. The EFC in financial aid, we love our acronyms. That stands for the estimated family contribution. That number is derived from the information that you put on your FAFSA application. And so in this example, we got a very neat, clean number of $30,000. It's usually not that neat, but when you do the math there at the very bottom, you would see your demonstrated need, which would be the recommended borrowing amount that you can consider funding through external sources or loan sources. And so in the next slide, we're just going to go over the different options available for domestic students. We'll definitely have a slide for international students and loan borrowing a little later on. And so, yes, there are three types of educational loans that domestic students can apply for. The first is the federal direct unsubsidized loan, and that loan is capped at $20,500 per academic year. U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens are automatically eligible for this funding, and it's the only loan in the graduate student loan universe that does not have a credit check component to it. So it is considered an attractive loan. This loan is fixed at 5.284%, and new rates are typically announced March, April time. And again, we would update our sites once we have that information. In terms of loans that are out there for domestic students, it's definitely considered a guaranteed loan as it doesn't have a credit check. Any other loans outside of this one would go through a credit check process. And so the second federal loan, the Graduate Plus loan, always fixed 1 percentage point higher than the unsub. So it's currently at a 6.284% interest rate. But all federal loan interest rates will be reset by Congress in June. The Grad Plus loan, that can cover up to the remaining cost of attendance if you needed it to. It does have a soft credit check. Aside from that, where we really see the decision-making process take place is between the Direct Plus loan versus private. We have many MBA and full-time MBA students who qualify for excellent rates through the private loan market. Lenders tend to want to lend to you. And so we have a private versus a plus versus federal, just a breakdown of each of the characteristics of each of the loan types on our portals and on our external site so that you can go ahead and kind of look through those options. We tend to tell students that if you're looking for flexibility, for more generous repayment periods, for more generous deferment options, to go federal. If really what you're looking for is to qualify for a low interest rate so that you can strategically pay your loan off quickly post-graduation, private may be more around your alley. But those are the loan types that you would be able to apply for should you come to SOM. All right, so this is the process for applying for financial aid. So first, the MBA admissions office will ask you for your FAFSA results. And for the FAFSA, you'll be using 2020 tax information, which you should hopefully all have access to. As part of submitting your FAFSA, you'll have your results sent to Yale University. And we've listed our school code, which is 001426. If you're interested in institutional need and merit-based aid, then you will have a round-specific deadline that will be communicated to you during the admissions process by the admissions team. You'll be asked to submit a paragraph stating why you have a compelling reason for scholarship funding. And if you are eligible, if you're lucky enough to be eligible for a scholarship, you'll be notified by the MBA admissions folks. Our office typically sends you your FAFSA results in April time, and in around June time, we'll hope that you already know how you plan to finance your MBA, through which loan sources you'll be borrowing through, and at that point, we'll send you all of the next steps on finalizing your loan options. And in the next slide, we just have an example of what that FAFSA result email looks like. So we'll include at the very top just the cost of attendance. Any discounts such as loans or scholarships that you may be eligible for would be listed as estimated financial aid. And we'll also include action items for you. So if you're planning on taking out federal or private loans, we would guide you through the next steps in filling out the loan forms. And so the first step I would say would be to complete a FAFSA application, as that's really how our office will know to communicate your options to you. Okay, and international students, yay, finally. So in terms of loans for international students, there is currently one no cosigner loan option through Quorum Federal Credit Union. And through them, students can borrow up to 80% of the cost of attendance. The application process typically takes somewhere around the tune of maybe 15 minutes. So if you take the full $198,500, 80% of that would be round about $160,000 or so, which would be a line of credit that you'd have access to draw down from throughout your 2 years in the AMBA program. Okay, and so just to give you a sense for how the cashier's office divvies up payments and how billing works, your bill will reflect the inclusive tuition cost. If you're opting into textbooks or requesting additional nights at the Omni, those adjustments would also be reflected on your bill. Any discounts like we discussed, such as institutional or external scholarships, loan funding, that will be reflected on your bill, as well as your tuition deposit. One thing to note, your deposit is applied towards your fall bill, and that is why you'll see the discrepancy between the fall amount and the spring. The fall amount will be less expensive than the spring in your first academic year, as the deposit is always applied towards the fall semester only. Okay, and so as I briefly mentioned, our office relationship with some of you doesn't end just when you graduate. Likewise, this isn't your last drink at the loan well. We maintain a site and we're constantly talking to student loan providers and different lenders about getting better rates upon graduation for our students. And so this is the site where we maintain the post-graduation information. All alums have access to an alumni portal post-graduation, where we would also give you any updates on federal loan provisions or anything that might change. A very, very large and attractive, I think, conversation topic with MBA and MBA students is refinancing loans. And so we've included here just a few of the refi lenders that we're aware of and the promotions that they offer. We constantly update this page as things change, just to give you a sense of how the refinance market works. For example, First Republic is, they refi loans for MBA students. They do have a robust qualification process, but your students who qualify are able to refi their loans at a 1.95 interest rate fixed, which is probably one of the lowest we've seen or heard of so far, but it's a very robust market. And in terms of loan forgiveness, SOM has quite an extensive loan forgiveness program, and we've provided somewhere to the tune of $12 million to our alums in support since its inception in 1986. In order to qualify, alums would need to be employed in some type of nonprofit or government work, something for public service, or the equivalent abroad. If an alum is eligible for loan forgiveness support, then that support would be extended for 10 consecutive years. All right, and so like I mentioned, at the office, it's myself and my boss, Rebecca Melville, who is the Managing Director of Financial Aid here at SOM, and we are always happy to answer any questions you have. If you shoot us an email, we'll try to get back to you within 1 to 2 business days, or you could always just give us a call during our normal business hours.
That's it. Awesome, Valerie, thank you so much. This brings us to, with about 5 minutes left, the Q&A portion of our webinar. I do have a couple of questions in here that I'd like to tag team with you, and then a couple look like they're more related to scholarships, and I'm happy to handle those in the few minutes that we have left. If anybody else has any other questions, this is the time to ask them in the Q&A, but I've left our email address here, emba.admissions@yale.edu. Again, any questions about scholarships, the Post and Commonwealth Fund Fellowship, or honestly anything that's related to financing your EMBA, do feel free to start with the admissions team. And like I said, we know quite a bit at this point, and whatever we don't know, as you can see, Valerie is a great partner to us, and we're more than happy to pass along questions that are beyond the admissions team. The first question here, Valerie, is about when to apply for financial aid. And in and of itself, that's a bit of a misnomer, right? So when we talk about applying for financial aid, we're talking about applying for scholarships as well as for need-based aid. That'll include not only scholarships, but loans as well. So I'll take the first half of this, which is, should we submit it at the same time as submitting the application? And the answer in short is yes. If you're submitting an application for any of our 3 rounds, the first one being November 3rd, you will have to indicate your interest in being considered for need or merit-based scholarship within the application itself. If you don't do that at that time and you're admitted to the program, we can certainly talk further, but yes, you will want to go ahead and fill out that form and complete that short paragraph to talk about why you're interested in being considered for scholarship and what your unique contribution might be. You will also want to fill out the FAFSA at that same time. And Valerie, can you talk a little bit about timing for FAFSA and should somebody submit it at the same time as an application, a couple of days later, wait till they get admitted, and how long does it take?
That it doesn't hurt. So I mean, completing the FAFSA, like Joanne said, it's super quick and easy for graduate students. You might have had to include parental information in your FAFSA during undergrad. It's just your information, or if you're married, you and your spouse's information to complete your FAFSA. So it likely takes somewhere around the tune to maybe 25 to 30 minutes, as long as you have your taxes in front of you. If you can get it out of the way and get it done, certainly do so. You can include up to 10 schools to send your results to. And then once it's time for our office to start communicating loan options to you, we'll already have your information on file. So it definitely doesn't hurt.
Thanks, Valerie. I have a great question here related to that. Is the FAFSA for US residents only? Which I know the answer is yes. And if so, what do we do for international students who might want to also be considered for sort of need-based aid in addition to the merit piece? What would be your advice for those folks?
For sure. So for the FAFSA, any U.S. citizen and eligible non-citizen, so that would be a permanent resident, would be eligible to complete the FAFSA application and eligible for federal loan funding. International students, obviously, you wouldn't be able to complete the FAFSA application, so it goes through a little bit more of an atypical process. So we would send you just a worksheet with asking some questions about your 2020 taxes, and we essentially mimic the FAFSA calculation and do the calculation manually ourselves. And all of that would be communicated to you throughout the process. So in either case, if you're an international student, you would just communicate that and we would derive your EFC, your estimated family contribution, for you.
Perfect, thank you. We have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to kind of lightning round through these last few questions. Somebody's asking about scholarships from Yale. Is there a max? And the answer is not really. However, I did mention in the past that our scholarships are limited and partial. On average, we give out about $15,000 to $20,000 per student for the program. Again, our tuition will hover around $200,000 for the upcoming year. Tuition doesn't ever go down. Does tend to increase from year to year, so you can have that expectation for tuition. And so if we were to award you something like a $10,000 scholarship, that would be off of the $200,000 total, $5,000 per year. Statistics on how many students get scholarships, we don't offer that publicly. It depends every year, things are a little bit different, but we do take into account how many students we have in the program, how many students may be asking for scholarships, and do our best to equitably award what we have to offer, which is a pretty small pool, as best as we can. The tuition rate for students that are employed by Yale University and Yale New Haven Hospital or the system, happy to talk to you, Mathieu, a little bit more one-to-one on that. In the past, we have offered a pretty generous discount for Yale University and Yale New Haven Hospital System employees as a benefit of your employment at the university or at the hospital system. So give us a buzz or shoot us an email and I'd be happy to talk to you further about that. You'll want to make sure that in the application itself, you do identify yourself as an employee, and then we'll go ahead and apply that discount for you when the time comes. That is it. We have come to the end of our time together, just on time. Thank you so much for sticking around with us for this great 45-minute discussion. I think we covered quite a bit of ground here, and I absolutely look forward to seeing you again in some future webinars. I have our EMBA admissions at yale.edu email address up here and encourage you to continue to be with us and ask us questions and come to our webinars. Don't be shy. We're really happy to help you through this potentially confusing and stressful process, but we're going to make it the best we can for you. I want to thank Liz and David, who are on the back end helping field some of those Q&As. And Valerie, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to present with you and to see you. So thanks for being with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and bye, everyone. It was lovely chatting with all of you and answering your questions.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.